All right, the action continues. This time, I've brought back Clint Eastwood's favorite actor, Jeremy Ratchford, who recently appeared as a villain in FBI, one of our all-time favorites, A Man About Town. And we're here to talk about one of your favorites, The Deep.
From the #1 bestseller by the author of Jaws, this is The Deep. It begins in Bermuda with the adventure and romance of an island vacation, a fantastic opportunity for two young lovers to get away from it all. Was it beginner's luck to discover a sunken wreck in less than 60 feet of water?
Where'd you get this exactly?
Was it coincidence that there were two treasures, one of priceless jewels, the other more valuable than that?
You must be the young couple who found that bottle this afternoon.
Certainly didn't look like anything.
We didn't find any bottle.
The danger and excitement of treasure worth killing for. The adventure and intrigue of a secret worth dying for.
She hasn't got it. If his tongue moves again, cut it.
Go upstairs, pack, and go home.
I'm going down there. And you're gonna have to blow me up, too.
As you please, boy.
And beneath it all is the terror of the deep. Robert Shaw.
I'm going to signal you and I'm going to fire this fuse. Now, after that, I don't care if you found the Holy Grail itself. You've only got 3 minutes.
Jacqueline Bissett.
Listen.
Nick Nolte.
Come on, Trace! All right, Trace, what the hell's going on?
Louis Gossett.
You forced me to take what you would not let me pay for.
And Eli Wallach.
98,000 ampules.
David, it's morphine. Morphine!
Keep those air hoses clear! Out! Out!
She's going to blow!
Out! Everybody, out!
From the #1 bestseller, this is The Deep.
What do you got to say about it? Kick it off for us.
I love it. I would love to thank Jacqueline Bissett,
Oh, yeah.
for
Everyone owes her a debt of thanks.
the most incredible opening 10 minutes of a movie.
She's known for it. It became kind of a moniker for her.
For those that haven't seen it or whatever, I love the fact that she's in a t-shirt and that
Conveniently.
she's not swimming naked. Because if she was swimming naked, it'd be but that it was just like, oh my God, she was gorgeous. She was sensual. She was sexy. It wasn't blatant in your face. She's scuba diving, but and
So,
this is another movie that starts off real quick because they're going around. It's like scuba talk. And then she finds that
Scuba
little
talk.
vial, goes for the second one. And I don't know if it was her or a stunt woman, but they get pulled into that boat by the arm hard. And like, again, we're 8, 9 minutes into the movie and you go, okay, all right, we got to
Yeah.
buy something. And there's something in that boat that's as strong as a get out.
yeah. So, like we said at the top, this is based on a Peter Benchley book, and he could write. The dude could write. And he creates an interesting scenario here. And honestly, one of the all-time great setups. Kids, if you're going to make a movie and you want to guarantee it gets off the ground with a fantastic cast, set it in the Caribbean. You're going to have a nice long list of applicants who want to get involved. You want to shoot something in Anchorage in the winter or Canada, that list gets very short. But if you're in the Caribbean, let it go. And here's the other thing, too. This movie's got a lot of great people in it, but two of the people involved who you may not fully appreciate on the surface, stuntman Robert Tessier and stuntman Robert Lee Minor. Two of the opposite ends of the spectrum here who have all kinds of great moments. Tessier, obviously, he'd done Break Hard Pass. He'd done a lot of Burt Reynolds movies, and he plays Kevin, who's like an adopted sibling to Robert Shaw, who's sort of maybe your hero in this, in a kind
Well,
of heroic. How would you define it? Like maybe removed as the hero, but hero adjacent, maybe?
he's Quint. You
Yeah,
know,
he's Quint. He's Quint.
Let me tell you, boy.
Yeah. The only thing he doesn't do is scratch a chalkboard and say, "Y'all know me."
Yeah.
You know how I earned a living. I think he does say, "You know how I earn a living" in this actually. But and then Robert Lee Minor.
Tessier. Who's the other guy you said?
Robert Lee Minor or Bob Minor, who was Blackula, Coffee,
Yeah.
Hell Up in Harlem, Three the Hard Way, Hammer, all those great films. There's a lot of people who were just fantastic talents that may not get top marquee billing, but really bring something to this film and other films, of course, but this film. Because this film is layered. This is directed by Peter Yates. And this film definitely has a cast that, for me, felt very legitimate. Those guys, the bad guys and the good guys, are all really great faces and personalities in this.
Something interesting to point out, though. It's Lou Gossett in this movie.
That's right.
Not Lou Gossett Jr.
No.
So,
no. When did he adapt the Junior? Was it after he got the Academy Award?
I don't know. But I thought that was interesting. But and to round out, you got, as you said, Bob Minor and Robert Tessier, who I absolutely adore.
Me too.
And the man, in my notes, I said 2 words: Eli Wallach.
Yeah, is he great in this?
He cornered the market on being a weasel, being weak, being like you feel sorry for him because he feels like he's let out. He's left out of the party. And then they get him drunk, and like he's always kind of like the good intention but weak. And he also plays good villains. He's a good fucking ass.
Yeah. He was good in every capacity. So was Gossett. I mean, Gossett he's very good in this.
Yeah.
He was very good overall. Rest in peace. We recently lost him. I mean, Officer and a Gentleman is where he won the Academy Award, right? But he's very effective in this as the bad guy. And so are his goons, man. Those guys were great. Minor's one of them. They are so effective. Nothing about those guys seems forced or faked. They strike me as a bunch of guys that could just totally rough the living shit out of you. But, and then, so basically the premise of the movie is there's a shipwreck, casual vacationing divers find it. It's a shipwreck on top of a shipwreck, a military shipwreck on top of a shipwreck of Spanish gold nobody knows about. A hurricane has since misplaced it. So conveniently.
They explain that in I think it's Shaw that says, like, you could be diving here today and come back tomorrow and it's all been thrown around. Like, that's sort of, I guess, almost like
I buy it in this.
Yeah, it's like you never know what the hell's going on under there.
Mm-hmm. But the military ship contains morphine, which is what Gossett wants, so he can work up his heroin market.
I'm a glass.
Yes, his name's Cloche. Name's Cloche. And they're very friendly at a cricket game, those two. They're both like at odds. Like, both those guys seem like Godfather types, mafia-wise, Shaw and Gossett. And they even have a sit-down with, like, security guys who, like, eye each other. Like,
Go away, will you? That was a stupid business last night, and cruel, very cruel. You did not go to the police. I've been tossing and turning all night, wondering why. Because there's thousands and thousands of ampules of morphine down there. You want them, and I got them. They're all still on the Goliath. You have nothing but the gall to claim ownership.
I rigged that ship with booby traps last night. She's wired 10 ways to hell, and the wrong person goes down there, she'll blow.
You would need an advantage to deal with me. I'll expect them in 2 days.
No, I shall need at least 4.
You seem to have settled on 3. What sort of fee are you getting for diving these days?
$1 million. Cash, low denominations, that's my share. You'll make twice as much as that in America.
Your attitude on drugs is a matter of record. Why sell them to me for a profit?
I have my reasons. Listen, I don't want any interference in this dive. I know you'll be watching, but I don't want to see you. And as for the young couple, they're my responsibility. You keep your hands off them. If you want me, you come and see me this time. You know where I live.
3 days, Therese. 3 days.
Afternoon, Mr. Cook.
Well done. I think it's really well done. Now this is not like a fast-paced action film, but this does like unravel in a bit. That's pretty intriguing.
As I say, this is another adult movie.
Yeah.
You know, it's got a mature cast in it. There's no I think Nolte was in his 30s. You know, this isn't like 19, 21-year-olds kind of teenager frolicking on the beach, which is what they probably do now.
No, these guys do feel like they definitely brought some grit to it, and they feel like they are the real deal. So they decide they're going to dive the wreck. And at one point, Shaw cuts a deal with Gossett to be like, I'll bring up the heroin for you. You'll pay me $1 million to do it. That's my rate. Yeah. And then he wires it to Blow. Wallach. Now, again, I got to tribute to the Z Channel. And again, if you grew up in Canoga Park or off Topanga Canyon like I did as a kid, the Z Channel was a cable channel unique only to the San Fernando Valley. But they showed like the 8-hour version of Bertolucci's 1911. They did things like that. They showed like real unique cuts of film, not really what you saw in the theater. And on the Z Channel, I saw the uncut version of this for the first time, where it starts with a shipwreck. And you can see the outtakes now on YouTube, but it starts with the shipwreck of the military ship. And then Eli Wallach's character, a kid, is running on the beach. Parts of the ship are washed ashore. There's a big steel door, like one of those blast doors. The kid opens it up and finds Wallach under it, but alive, like coughing up seawater. And he's like scared back because it's like a skeleton of a human being. That's the opening of the movie that I saw when I was a kid. So again, like when we were talking Cassandra Crossing, when you're young, it kind of depends on what you see and when you catch on to these films and whether or not you're going to ride it out. And I remember seeing that going, oh my God, what is this movie? Well, that turns out to be Wallach's character, who's like a godfather for Shaw, although I can't figure out really what the relationship is. They just seem to be friends, or Wallach counts on Shaw. But Shaw, by the way, loves to dive in his clothes. Like, he just doesn't even bother to scuba up in this movie. We were talking about that off air. What do you make of that?
Yeah, it was one of those things that I didn't even realize it until I realized it.
Yeah.
He's underneath the water. Also, I went, he's got a button-down shirt on with a collar.
Yeah.
And then he's got cargo pants. And I can only imagine and probably
And
rightfully
socks.
so.
He wears his socks under his fin. So basically, in the same outfit he played golf in is what he jumps over the side of the boat in to
Yeah.
scuba.
But
So, okay.
I can also
Okay.
say that he may have looked at himself in a scuba, the shorts, because it would have been hot or whatever.
Yeah.
He may have looked, and it may have been so distracting to have him wearing the rubber scuba outfit. He was like, fuck it. I'll just
Yeah.
wear it up. Who knows?
Yeah, he is good in this. Back to what we were saying. Shaw dives in his golfing outfit. Eli Wallach, he gets blown sky high in this. Again, if you haven't seen a movie that's now about 50 years old, Wallach gets sent to Jesus early.
Not too early.
Well, not too early in the film, but earlier than I expected. I thought for sure. I mean, I knew when he turned traitor, he was going to get whacked, but I just didn't know. Even when I saw it as a kid, I just didn't know how. This movie also takes a unique turn because there is an incredible fight scene with Tessier.
Yeah.
It's really done well, I think, even for the time. It's very believable.
Yeah.
And of course, he probably coordinated. And I think it's with an actor he's worked with several times because it felt like there was some familiar. When they do the reverse chokehold and go down on the boat, and it's like, and you just hear someone's neck snap, and you're not sure whose.
Yeah.
That did not remedy the way I expected it to. I was kind of shocked by the outcome of that when I was a kid going, "Wait, that guy died?"
Yeah. The exact same as
I was like, that's the guy that died? But so good. So Eli Wallach,
And Tessier, is it Tessier?
yeah.
Every time I've seen him, it seems like if the shit was going down,
Yeah.
that's the guy I want covering my back.
For sure. He was like that in every movie. Burt Reynolds said he was really like that, like a Dar Robinson type.
Yeah. Oh, in The Longest Yard, doesn't he do that?
Yeah, because he's in that too. He's in The Longest Yard.
But he goes like, "We get to hit the guards." And it's like,
yeah. Yeah. He reminds me a lot of like my old buddy Sonny Landham. Like they have similar personalities. Like there's going to be a bit of hell raising, you say? I think I've got some time free this evening. Let's get at it. That kind of guy. But he really does cut an interesting presence because I'm not sure. Don't you always wonder too, looking at these guys? Like I wonder.
He died in 1990.
Yeah, cancer, I think, right? Wasn't that what it was?
56 years old.
Young. He died young. The thing about him was I always wonder, like, how big is this guy really if I was to stand next to him? Because I was shocked when I met Schwarzenegger at Warner Brothers and he was 2 inches shorter than me because he always looked larger in life. And some of these other guys, Stallone, they were, Seagal was a lot taller than me, but some of these other guys were small. So I look at Tessier and I go like, that guy strikes a big presence on screen. And I also see him against, like in Cannonball Run, opposite Burt Reynolds, and he looks big against Burt, but I never met Burt. Did you work with Burt Reynolds?
No, I did The Crew, which was Burt Reynolds, Dreyfuss, Dan Hedaya, and Seymour Cassell. I played the young Dan Hedaya. So we were the younger versions of them,
Uh-huh.
but I never got to meet them.
Yeah, I think Burt Reynolds was probably cooler than to be around as a person than people give him credit for. One of my favorite, I mean, you either love him or you hate him movie wise. Smokey and the Bandit, take your pick. But one of my favorite quotes by him is when he was asked in an interview, "Why would you do a Cannonball Run?" And he said, "Well, if you ask me, the only thing more atrocious than being offered $5 million for doing Cannonball Run would be not taking it and doing it." And he was right. He was 100% right. It would be like not doing it. If they're going to offer you $5 million. And kids, that's our reality. Honestly, like when people, that happens a lot with actor friends of mine in public. People ask them why they do certain films. And like, hey, man, these guys got a mortgage to pay too. It goes the way it goes. No one's hoping Cannonball Run is like some terrible film. And I thought it was fun as a kid. I didn't have any expectations of it. But another movie that has everybody in it, by the way. And it actually, that's the movie, according to Bill Daly, my former boss at Warner Brothers, said that's the movie that made everyone contractually obligated to deliver blooper reels. Cannonball Run did it for the credits. Everyone loved it. And from that point on, the studio contracted every director, you have to deliver a blooper reel. So go out and get it if it doesn't naturally happen. Go have your actors fuck off for 45 minutes in front of a camera, whatever. So another movie with everyone. But Tessier's in that opposite Reynolds, and he looks huge next to Burt Reynolds, and he's great in this, but they matched him up with some good-sized dudes. I mean, everyone in this looks like they could fucking move a defensive line.
Yeah.
Every one of these guys looks like they could punch it into the end zone. But, the interesting thing is you said Jacqueline Bisset, who arguably maybe does the best performance in all this. She's very convincing. You said Shaw, who was my favorite actor as a kid. He's basically a kind of a dialed back Quint. Nolte is Nolte.
Yeah.
Gossett is very effective. Everyone's good, but I think she has to convey the most emotion because she gets like a voodoo scare.
Yeah.
Which I don't really know what happens there, other than the whole thing's fucking terrifying. It scared me as a kid too. I mean, these dudes, like, one of the things this movie does do, I think, is stage very scary villains. Like, these guys definitely strike me as meaning business. Now, this is before Lou Gossett did Enemy Mine as an alien and all these other things that were a little bit more loose. These guys definitely strike me as scary fucking dudes in the deep.
And just what you pointed out, I love kind of this juxtaposition, though. You've got Jacqueline Bisset goes through the bloody chicken feet and the masks and all stuff. And then you got Nolte opening the door and there's that dead animal with a feather through it. And Robert Shaw just reaches up, knocks it off, throws it in the water like, fuck off. And you're like, oh, good. Because I think so much of that stuff it's only as powerful as you allow it to be in your life.
Great point. You're absolutely right. And so for her, it's a very powerful moment, right? Because it's a complete violation. For Shaw is a little bit more of a pirate in this, which, by the way, most of the Caribbean cast in this, including Bob Miner, who we talked about, the stuntman extraordinaire, they were all in Swashbuckler with Shaw. So I get the sense that these guys probably had some pretty good social skills together and went out on the town and did some serious damage on movie after movie. I think Shaw was considered pretty good company once the production wrapped for the day. So these guys probably all really knew each other well. And this was one of those movies where they're like, hey, man, we're going to be in Bermuda.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to see the script. Like, I'll just see it. Like, that's what funny. That's what Lee Marvin said John Ford told him for Donovan's Reef. He called him up and he's like, we're doing a movie in Hawaii. He's like, well, send me the script. He's like, you don't need to see the fucking script, Lee. It's in Hawaii with your friends. That's how Lee Marvin tells the story. So I feel like that's what the deep was, that they're like, hey, Robert's going. Oh, Robert's going. Oh, did you know, by the way, they racked up a $70,000 bar tab on the Sam Peckinpah film, not The Wild Bunch, but Bring Me the Head of Alfredo Garcia, which would have been like $500,000 in today's money. Like, that's almost an achievement, right?
Yeah.
So, but I bet the bar tab on the Deep was pretty steep too, with Nolte and Shaw buying the drinks. Like, can you? I don't see. Like, don't you think he would be able to peer pressure us, huh, Ratchford? Like, if we were at a party with Shaw and he goes, "Aye, you ain't leaving. We're having another rum Collins." I'd be like, "Okay, I guess I'm staying. I'm not going to be able to say no, Robert. I'm out of here." It's like Shaw had like this sort of social presence about him. Like, I'm in command here. This is my ship.
Have uh have I ever told you my Ben Gazzara story?
You have, and he corralled you for some drinks. Ben Gazzara, though, by the way, he's a lot like these actors we're talking about because he had some real grit.
Had some real grit, but was
Yeah.
4 feet tall. Did like I told you, Action Burn. Missed my name a bunch of times. Like that, the whole story of Action Vern was we had real cowboys on the show, and this 13-year-old kid shows up and he says, "My dad's name's not Burn, it's Action Burn." Because the scene had to start off, it's a scene with Gazzara
All
and
right.
Reuther. And they'd go, "Okay, roll cameras," and they're like, "Action Burn," and this, and he would drive a wagon, a horse wagon, through the scene, and then they go, "and action." So they needed movement off the top. Well, Gazzara goes, "Listen to me, Steve. Cut. His name is Bob." Say, reset, roll camera, action verb. "Listen to me, Jimmy. Cut. No, his name is Bob." He messed it up, so this kid's watching 13-year-old real cow, already bow-legged. But he goes, "My dad's name's not Burn, it's Action Burn."
That's awesome.
It's terrible.
Did you like working with? Did you like working with Gazzara?
He was a trip. He was a trip. He punched me in the face twice. Because he had
on accident in a scene, or
he came flying. It was called Convict Cowboy, and we're a group of convicts in the rodeo circuit. And there's obviously warring factions between the different prisons and stuff. So at one point we're having a bit of a tussle with another group, and Gazzara's got to come in as our warden and break it up.
Perfect.
Well, again, he's like a little spider monkey, and he's drunk 24/7. But he came flying in to break it up. But as he came flying in, boof, I take one in the chin, and I'm like, "Oh!" And then he said the wrong name. We had to go again. We did it again, and then I think the third take, he came in because he just flew off, and he clipped me again. As there was no sorry, like he didn't even know it. I started laughing because it was like he has no idea what he's doing.
Did you see him in The Killing of a Chinese Bookie?
No.
It's on Turner Classic Movies now, if you can get into the archives through the Max app or something like that. But he is so effective in that. Have you seen him in Bridget Remagen?
No, I gotta do it because I already did. Because
you should. He's so good.
He was a bit of a joke, It was like,
but that's sad to hear because obviously the Coen brothers immortalized him in Big Lebowski, but he in Bridget Remagen, a World War II film produced by my former buddy at Warner Brothers, David L. Wolper, who also did Willy Wonka, and gave me a golden ticket from Wonka, I should say. In fact, I think I got that right over there. That feels more like a Vietnam film, but Gazzara and George Segal are the stars of it, and they are so good. They just look like tired GIs that are fucking over it. And when all the hell breaks loose, it breaks loose pretty hard in that film. So it's pretty well done, I think, personally. Directed by an absolute madman who was my former neighbor on Topanga Canyon. More on that later. But Gazzara, I think you could cast Gazzara in this film, and he'd probably fit right in, don't you think?
Yeah.
Have you ever worked with Nolte?
No, I'd love to.
Oh, I can't believe you don't get called to do ADR work for Nolte.
Well, what's funny? I told you about the crew. So I played I went to the audition, and my character's name is Brick, the Brick.
Right.
And I do my version of it. And they said, "You realize you're going to be playing a young Dan Hedaya." And I went, "I know. Did you want me to do that?" And he went, "Yeah, could you do it again like that?" So I did my Dan Hedaya, and it didn't seem that way. And I got the gig. So I'm playing a young Dan Hedaya. And then I get called in to do some looping. And Dan Hedaya wasn't available, and they said, "Do you think you could do a couple of his lines?"
Of course.
I'll give
Yeah.
it a try. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
But I didn't get to meet him. I never got to meet him.
My old boss,
My fear of Nolte now, though, like I would have loved to have worked with him back.
yeah.
Now I don't know. I would love. It's one of those things. Sorry, I'm going to tangent here. I got a chance to spend 2 days with Danny DeVito, and I just wanted to sit at his feet and say, like, tell me about the shooters. Tell me about Cuckoo's Nest. Like you've been in every element. And same with Nolte. It's like, can you tell me? Just fucking tell me some story. I'd love to hear his stories. And Bridges as well. I'd love to hear Jeff Bridges just sit.
Yeah. All three of those guys, hallmarks.
Yeah.
My old boss, John Milius, directed Nolte in Farewell to the King and said that every day after they wrapped, Nolte would seek permission to have a few beers by the pool. He'd always ask, "Hey, John, can I have a couple of beers?" And Milius would be like, "Yeah, whatever. Just be ready to go by tomorrow." So that was the one Nolte story I got from Milius. I don't really know. I mean, we must know people who've worked with him. Walter Hill and Sonny Landham's gone, but 48 Hours. But I can't really recall. Can you imagine what the set of 48 Hours must have been like with Nolte, James Remar, and Sonny Landham? Now that I think about it, like, talk about three guys that really you better respect the director. Or, gee, can you imagine that? And then Eddie Murphy, too, who was in, like, just coming out, being, the icon. By the way, have you seen the Saturday Night Live movie about, like, Saturday Night Live, about the first broadcast they've done? Have you seen that yet?
Oh, I don't think so.
It's on Netflix. I don't know that it's worth watching, but I saw it, so I thought I'd see if you'd seen it, because it's, it's got, like, people playing Aykroyd, Chase, Belushi.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I
always get nervous about those kinds of movies.
Yeah. Well, it centers around Lorne Michaels, obviously. The actors, I would say, do a pretty good job. I don't know how entertaining the whole thing really is now, having watched it in retrospect. I don't think I'd watch it twice, but yeah. So anyway, that's another thing. But Nolte, do you have a favorite Nolte movie? Is it this? Is it The Deep? 48 Hours? Teachers? Teachers was another big one for him. I think with Ralph Macchio, right? Coming off Karate Kid.
Yeah. What's my favorite Nolte? I mean, well, it's like
if you say that Barbra Streisand film, Prince of Tides, this conversation is over.
I wish I should have had that in my back pocket.
It's okay, folks, if you like Prince of Tides. Just don't come here with it.
Yeah. Oh, what was there's many of them, but I remember I thought he did a remarkable job in is it North Dallas 40? Was that?
Yeah, him? Again, another film directed by my buddy Ted Kotcheff. Yeah, that's great. That's a great choice because he is so good in that. It's one of those where they're literally smoking cigarettes in the locker room, the players.
Yeah. Well, that's actually, what a beef of mine is right now.
What?
Because that was, I was watching a hockey commentary and it was going into the second period of overtime. And they had people on at the desk, and I think Jeremy Roenick or somebody like that. They said to him, what did you do going into the second period of overtime? And he said, if it's that late, they already have the pizza brought in, so you scarf down a piece of pizza. Some guys would be smoking, and this person went, "What?" I was like, yeah, you don't know that in those locker rooms back in the 70s and whatever, they were smoking cigarettes and doing all that stuff. But when they went on television, it was, hey, kids, eat your Wheaties, your practice, respect your coach. And now, all I see on television, it's driving me absolutely fucking insane. All I see, like Wayne Gretzky hawking sportsbook. Everybody is hawking betting,
like FanDuel?
betting apps for sports. And I'm going, So you like arguably like you aren't you playing the game? You got your own rewards, but aren't you supposed to be the ambassadors to children and kind of showing up and like this is hard work and playing tough and playing fair and
Right.
that. And now it's like and get this little app on your phone and put $1 on my game.
Exactly.
I do not get.
Yeah, the world's changed, hasn't it? Like that would have
Ah,
been completely. If you would have pulled that shit off when we were kids and done a commercial promoting some sort of form of gambling, which would have been probably your ad hoc craps game with the valets at your favorite restaurant, probably in those days, you would have been fucking seriously shamed because that was sort of seen as a road to destruction. But now it's exactly like you say. It's like FanDuel. You'll get a free $500 and a box of wings.
This kind of fits in here too. Remember when Telly Savalas came out for the casinos or whatever his nightclub thing was?
All right, hold up. You mentioned Telly Savalas. Now, that guy, all right. Nobody mentions Telly Savalas to me without us stopping the brakes on the name Telly.
Who loves you, baby? You're beautiful.
All right, for one, we both watched Kojak. We watched the first episode of Kojak, which I loved. That show had some real grit, and Harvey Keitel is the bad guy in it. But you mentioned Telly Savalas, Kojak. We watched it. Savalas did that show. He didn't, according to Kevin Dobson, who was the co-star on that show and did Midway. He's done combat radio. He did before he passed away. We had nothing but Savalas questions for him. Tell me about Telly recording his spoken word album. Telling me about Telly in Vegas. And all those stories are exactly what you want to hear. Just wonderful. Telly was the man in Las Vegas for all his friends. So he said that Telly Savalas didn't want to do Kojak, but he had like a $500,000 gambling bill. So the network said, well, we'll get you out of that, but we're going to need you for Kojak. So he agreed to do it because of his gambling. So there you go. And you get Kojak, which, by the way, I thought was actually pretty entertaining to rewatch. It wasn't half bad. Keitel is totally believable. And Telly Savalas had a presence about him on that show. You know, he was pretty fun to watch.
We're going off on a tangent, but
No. It's good. It's a good tangent, though.
Zwarek did some cold cases. And I was watching, I started watching the Kojak series. I got through the first 2 seasons.
Right.
Probably have a third. I'm like, don't leave. It's a cliffhanger. So I got it. Where are the other 3? Come on.
Oh, I got them all if you need it.
Oh, good. But I reached out. I took a screenshot of Jeannot coming up, directed by, and I sent it out to the Cold Case cast. And a friend of mine, Adam Glass, who was one of the writers, producers, and has gone on to do all sorts of other stuff. And I sent that out to them saying, like, look I'm doing a Kojak deep dive. And look whose name comes up. And he died that day. He died that day. But it was like,
Of shock from your post?
What Catherine kind of said from the show, from the cast that sees dead people, this was, reaching out to us one last time before he went because of my deep dive. It was like, it was so cute. Like we all had a moment because he was fun. It was great. But
rest in peace.
There's one of the ones, I don't know if I sent it to you, but he's talking to a doctor, and the doctor is not, I don't know how to describe it, but he said, aren't you curious? And Lily Smells says, you know what curiosity did to the pussycat? Meow, baby.
Yeah.
I don't know how we got away.
But so only Telly, well, other actors too, I guess, now that I think about it, Telly's one of those rarities who can deliver a line like that and not fuck it up. Like he could say very unique things effectively, and not everyone can. He has so many lines in that first one, especially when he goes in to negotiate with Harvey Keitel. And in the following episodes, where he's trying to get people to rat and what he does and how he threatens them. And hey, tell me, don't tell me. You'll be dead tomorrow, and I'll be at the coffee shop having a donut. How do you like that? But he could do it in a way where you're like,
baby,
damn, bro.
You like that, baby?
Yeah, I mean, this is like early 70s too. Like this was kind of like a new era for grit and cop shows. And they shot that first episode of Kojak on the streets of New York. Like they went out in the wilderness. But what was cool
That's
is I
what
was
you
all
can see. People on opposite corners are stopping and staring at what's going on.
yeah. Yeah. You know, I always look for the transition point from like the real streets to when they transition to the back lot, you know, because
Yeah.
you knew they had to go there for the hostage situation. And they, you know, the way they did it in this episode, which was pretty good, was they turned it into a foot chase. So once they start running through alleys and stuff and they suddenly appear on the back lot, it's a little bit more convincing than all of a sudden, like Kolchak, where Darren McGavin will be driving in Chicago, suddenly spin a corner and he's on the Universal back lot with Jaws popping up in the background. So it's like one of those things where they did it really well in Kojak. It's a fun show. We gotta give that one more time
I
in
think
one of these broadcasts. But getting back to your favorite, The Deep.
they had a blue van in
Yeah.
like several episodes that they just put another company name. It's like, oh yeah, there's the van. And the
Yeah.
same way, because I'm a car guy. When I watch these 70s shows, it's like I want every fucking car in the parking lot. But you'll see they'll use stock footage of it's like, oh, there's that orange Camaro that I saw,
Yeah.
and now we're driving by it again. It's like, but we're not supposed to be in the same place. I just love kind of being able to pick up that stuff.
You know, it is funny because you can see in some of these shows, like they'll be like, for Kolchak, for example, a show I loved.
Yeah.
They'd be like, Darren, we need you driving around Chicago. We'll need it all season. So we're going to send you out there Thursday. You'll drive around Friday, part of Saturday, and come back. So it's always the same street. Like, you know, whatever monster he's hunting down, he still drives the same Chicago block in every episode. But anyway, getting back to The Deep for a moment, because it deserves its place of reverence among us. You have a favorite scene out of this movie? Tell me it's the voodoo scene.
Not the voodoo scene.
The eel, the electric eel scene.
I tell you, it's funny because that's a huge fucking eel.
Is it? It looked big, didn't it? But I'm wondering how they photographed it. But it looked mean. That fucking thing looked mean.
My next thing is going to be, we never really see the eel.
Yeah.
People. So was it like 12 feet long and almost 2 feet thick, or was it some monkey?
I don't know. I don't know. I'll tell you this, though. It was a terrifying element in the context of the film. It worked for that moment.
Yeah.
They also have that thing I hate, meaning love to hate, where at one point they need air and they find an air pocket in the wreck of the ship, but it's like that high. It's like that abyss moment, you know, where the tide is up here and that claustrophobia. I mean, it kind of reminds me of these cave exploring videos where these idiots decide to get into smaller and smaller tunnels until they're stuck, and you're like, what the fuck are you doing? What the fuck are you doing? It's not meant for you. Why are you doing it? And that's what I thought when he like pops up. I'm like, oh my God, this guy is like in this little space. And you know, when they establish it, okay, it's going to come back later when there's some kind of action element around the wreck, because that's where this is going. You don't have to be a filmmaker to know it. You know, it's like they're heading towards, they're going to collide here.
At the beginning, they're like,
yeah.
And then they pull up in that one going, I'm not going to blow it. That's when they can talk.
Yeah.
And the next time they went down, it was sort of like, I'm going to go inside the boat. And all of a sudden, now they're yelling at each other through their scuba gear, which they weren't doing before. And I don't, they kind of went, you know what? We just got to get on with it. We need the dialogue and just get to it.
You know, I mean, you can do it with hand signals and hope the audience can interpret where it's going. And I think with The Deep, you could. I mean, you can also subtitle the hand signals. I don't know how effective that would be, but it's an option to explore.
Yeah.
You know, but it is funny how they suddenly, you know, in The Abyss, they made those masks so you could see the actor talking.
Yeah.
And you can see who it is. Obviously, The Deep wasn't thinking in that sort of caliber, but I felt like everyone in here kind of handled their own. Yep. You know, that was a great explosion that blew Wallach off the planet. I thought that was rigged really with the demo crew earned their paycheck.
Yeah.
And with him goes the morphine, right?
Yeah.
But why did he store it there? Was he actually going to deliver the morphine to Cloche and collect $1 million?
No, he said he put it there and booby trapped it, knowing that Eli Wallach, this is where he's going to come. Like
So
that, like he set that whole thing up, knowing it, like whoever opens the door, it's kaboom.
Coffin. They killed Kevin.
yeah,
That was the thing with Shaw, even as much as hey boy,
yeah.
much as he's kind of the Quint asshole, his intentions were righteous. He didn't want
Yeah.
that shit on the market and didn't want it going to the government because the government might fuck it up and do something, whatever. He
You
wanted to
think?
considerate it.
Yeah, I love that about his character. I loved Shaw in the 70s. I really loved him in Force 10 from Navarone. I loved him in Jaws, The Deep. I loved him as Swashbuckler. I loved him in Robin and Marion.
I
When he
was about
played
to
the
say I loved him as the sheriff
Sheriff of Nottingham. I really loved him. Even there was something about him I just really enjoyed watching. So at what point do you think he recognizes that Wallach's turned traitor? Was that when he finds Kevin murdered?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's where he would piece it together because he goes for a walk with it. But it feels like he knows something is up prior to that.
Well,
Like he's eyeing Wallach like, what are you up to, you old swabby?
yeah. Well, and
You
he's the
know?
only one that's allowed past security because he brings Nolte and Bissett back to his place after
Yeah,
the chicken incident. Uh,
right.
there's no flights out tonight, boy. You come back to my place. And
Yeah.
then he's kind of got that. I just, as you kind of pointed out too, his bad guy, his crew, you know, when he goes, don't let anybody pass. It's like, no one's
Yeah.
going to, hey, my car broke down. It's like, back the fuck off or I'll fucking kill you. But the
Mike
only one
Fenton
that's true is Wallach.
Mike Fenton cast this, and that he may have been one of the best casting directors of all time. Certainly one of them, I would think, but maybe what he cast and what he was able to. I met him at Warner Brothers too. He was very easy to talk to and very likable, Fenton. But he cast this, and he cast great guys as like you don't question for a second that those dudes could stop a blockade runner. Those guys were so believable. And I don't know if they got him off the. I mean, obviously Tessier and some of these other guys minor were Hollywood regulars, but it's really well done. It's put together visually. It's really good. And I love Shaw's house because it reminds me of living in Laguna Beach in the 70s. It was like one of those, like it looks like a pirate tavern turned into a living room.
Yeah,
It's just like,
yeah.
and he's even got like the door, like, why you here?
Yeah.
You come to talk to me. Well, go fuck yourself. Click. It's like,
Well, the other element of the movie is that the elevator shaft.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
Do
did.
you think that was built for this? Do you think that was built for this movie?
No, you could see that there's that beach down there,
Yeah.
and the only way to it is going down that mountain.
Yeah.
And they probably said, you know what? I mean, that looked raw, original
Right.
island. That it might still be there. But then that whole sequence about the lights are off in the hotel. I'll get up in there. Nolte gets in there, sees the guy who's coming down the path, decides to go up the elevator. They stop that. He has the fight on the elevator, and then does the kind of the Warner Brothers cartoon, like as it's going down, he's going up on the other side, gets to the top, gets to her, and then Shaw's there in like 5 seconds. So
Yeah.
somehow Shaw parked his boat, got ashore, and even though the elevator shaft is broken, he got up to that hotel pretty damn quick.
Yeah, he did, didn't he? Robert Shaw did the Dick Cavett show, and Dick Cavett asked him if there was any actors he hated working with, and Shaw said yes. And and then Cavett asked him, "Are there any actors who worked with you and hated you?" And Shaw said yes.
Yeah. Oh, I understand he was not a happy man.
So I can tell you this: Carl Gottlieb, who wrote Jaws, also Caveman, the jerk, one of our regulars here, said he loved Shaw. He said Shaw was a writer. He was very eloquent. He said the famous Indianapolis speech of Jaws was shot over 2 days. He said my old boss, John Milius, did not write it, that it was a combination of him and Shaw and the previous screenwriter that kind of cobbled it together. But he thanked Shaw on our show for his contributions to that, not just the movie, but to that sequence, and said, he's drunk one day, he's sober the next. I guess he was drunk. He called Steven Spielberg that night and said, "Can you give me another crack at this? I feel I can do it better." Very mature move for an actor to say, "I think I blew it. Can you give me another shot?" And doing it effectively, coming through with the home run the next day. And he said, what you see in the cut is a mix of both days, the drunk day and the sober day. But he said, overall, Shaw was fantastic. He said, once they wrapped, Shaw had another bit of business he would get to every night, which was he was going to hit the bar and make sure everyone knew and felt his presence in the cantina. But he said professionally, for the most part, despite the story I just told you where he was drunk for half the shooting of the Indianapolis speech, that he was pretty agreeable. Now, we know the famous stories that Dreyfuss and him didn't get along, but Dreyfuss privately said Dreyfuss's personality, I've only met Dreyfuss twice, and he was fantastic, but his personality at the time, going out on talk shows before Jaws was released, saying it was going to be a failure, the studio should be blamed, not Steven, notoriously passing on the movie, then saying I had to take it because it looked like the apprenticeship of Dovey Kravitz, whatever it was, fucking, that movie, was going to fail. So I had to jump. So to me, it seems like maybe Shaw had his moments, but didn't want to necessarily tolerate the way Dreyfuss was in those days. And that's where the friction could have been. Dreyfuss ultimately kills it in that fucking movie. And he's great in Close Encounters. The Goodbye Girl, pick your Dreyfuss film, the dude delivers. And when I met him, he was fantastic. But maybe there's not as much to the friction between the two of them now removed from it as we were kind of led to believe. My theory from seeing a few sets in my day. What do you think?
Yeah, I I worked with some people that worked with Shaw,
Yeah. And
and remember hearing one story about a Scrabble board being left for 3 days
I know where this is going.
because he had like it was if he put his letters down, he could win, and if he didn't, he would lose, and he was very competitive that way. So no one could touch the Scrabble board for 3 days, and he had to win. I also heard that he was known to have a drink, and at a certain point, he would start talking about his first wife that committed suicide. And that's what I had heard on the first Indianapolis drunken night. He would launch into the monologue, and whatever problems he had with Dreyfuss, he would be like, 1800, and then he'd turn like, did I tell you about my first wife? And he would just start talking about it. And they said he would float in and out, and it was that kind of. And again, it's. There are some actors, I think, that have that heart of darkness.
Yeah.
That somehow translates through their work. Maybe it made him who he is. So, if we can look at some of his great performances, maybe he's got, that god awful pain. I go back, on a very weird level. Was it Mad Max? When they pull away at the end of that movie and Mel Gibson standing in the middle of the highway, and
Thunderdome.
and it's kind of like that's the NAR, no acting required kind of thing. But I think Mel Gibson has some serious fucking demons. So that sometimes when he's just standing there, it's like holy, like there's a a wealth of pain, or just like
Yeah.
there's that in them. Uh, and then we can go to Harris.
Yeah.
Harris. In the field, my father's father's father.
Oh, isn't that a great movie though? The
Yeah,
Field.
and you see those guys like that's sorry to go kind of cross reference now too with all this. Um, I work with Harris, and he tells story like he's very open about it. He says there's 18 years of his life he can't remember, and then he quit drinking. And
That's right. You worked with him on Unforgiven.
yeah, and I spent 2 weeks. They called us in early for that opening scene, and if the clouds didn't break by 11 a certain way, we got sent home. So for 2 weeks, I was in there at 6 o'clock in the morning and just sitting at his feet. We're having a breakfast sandwich, and he just told me story after story after story. And it said that he wanted to get out to set 3 weeks earlier and hang out with the young actors because he said, I grew up on the stage, it's all this, but you grew up with the camera here. I want to know what you know. And like he was just
Did all those personalities get along on that? Hackman, Harris, yeah.
yeah. Uh yeah, Harris. One of his lines was, I know why they call you Little Bill. And everyone fucking started laughing. And he was just the showman. Hackman wasn't too approachable. But then he's got enough friends. He doesn't need to make friends with us. And he also had to be a curmudgeon son of a bitch. It was only on my last night there that all of a sudden we get, I think I told you this, but I was like, Hackman wants to sing along. So we all go down to Hackman's trailer with our guitars, and we just start passing the guitars around and singing songs. And I picked up the guitar and I start doing Bobby McGee, and Hackman's over my right shoulder, and he starts singing harmony along with me. And all I get is like, I'm going, holy fuck, I'm singing one of my dad's favorite songs with Gene fucking Hackman backing me up.
Right.
Fucking up. And then
Gold, baby.
Morgan Freeman was a bit of a dick. But again, his character kind of called for it. We were the cops and he was not. So he would, at one point, there was a comedian on set was going through cowboy terms. And one of them was a mail order cowboy or something to that effect. And it's like a guy that gets his cowboy outfits through the mail. And Morgan Freeman said, like you all. And he was like pissing on us. And it was like, and then on my last day there, I got bucked off the horse at the arriving with Morgan Freeman in the posse. I get bucked off my horse, and it's all fucking dramatic. And they bring in another horse. Buddy Van Horn kind of comes up to me and says, "No, no."
Oh, Buddy Van Horn. Buddy Van Horn was your stunt coordinator on that?
Yeah, yeah.
He.
I wore his armadillo pad when I break the chair when I get shot in the bar. Buddy was like
legend. Yeah. All right, continue.
So I get bucked off the horse. I get bucked onto my gun on both guns, and Buddy comes up to me, just puts his hand on my lower back, and he just goes, "No, I know that hurt. So when you get on that plane tonight, you get some ice on your elbow." I was just like, "Yeah, no." So I get
Buddy Van Horn was also a bit of an actor. You know, he played the sheriff in High Plains Drifter that Eastwood replaces from The Ride Out of Hell. Anyway, but these guys, so Freeman never came around, but Clint was Clint. You're Clint's favorite actor. So
Morgan Freeman, I get back up on my horse and he went, "Well, you look good." And I had heard, because he was always out riding. He was a very good horseman. He was out with the cowboys. When he wasn't working, he was a cowboy. But I had heard from the stunt guys that earlier that morning he'd stopped by a creek with his horse and they were having a cigarette with his leg over the horn. And his horse kind of went, and dropped him in the drink. So he said, "Well, you look good." And before I even knew it, I said, well, at least I didn't get bucked into a pond and fuck up my wardrobe for the next shot. And the house came down. All the cowboys were like, oh my God. Personally, I almost said to the, oh, fuck, I won. Like, I called him out in front of, and everybody was there. We'd done the cast photo that day.
Yeah.
Everybody was there. And I thought, oh, fuck. I probably got more respect in that moment. And to give him his due, Morgan took it. He took it.
Yeah.
And then there's Eastwood. Eastwood, like, this was the one that we had. He said,
but before you get to Eastwood, you do have to give Morgan his prop, because we know plenty of actors who would insist you get fired for that.
Yeah.
So it was nice that he took it and said, all right, you guys got a moment. I mean, I do that shit all the time, but I'm me. I'm an easy target. But yeah, so anyway, so Eastwood.
But no, that's all the things that I've kind of just talked about was they don't need any new best friends. But when you stand up for yourself, people kind of like, when you don't take it, it's like, oh, it's like, because I saw him say to someone else going, look at me when you talk to me, man. You look like he was like he was an ornery son of a bitch, but all in his character. I can only imagine when he's on some of these other shows where he's got to be that salt of the earth. That he's probably, I think he evolves that way. Who knows? But then Eastwood, I got two. I was up in the mountains with Bob Spade, because when you weren't working, they wanted you on a horse constantly and in your wardrobe, breaking everything in. And we're up in the mountains. You can see nothing. The compound was like a silver reflection of a thumbnail, like miles away.
Mm.
The only thing, we had a radio in one of the saddlebags, and we get this message saying, oh, we need Ratchford back on set ASAP. So we hop on the horses, and it was like, this is one of my, we go down this fucking mountain. We go across the creeks. We come up the bank, and we go flying across the plains up into Big Whiskey. There's no one there but Eastwood, and he's sitting on the end of a camera dolly, big tall one. And he's lining up something with over there. And I kind of bring the horse to a hockey stop, and we're just like, oh. And Eastwood looks up. Give her more range, Jer. And I just remember sitting on my horse, kind of going, Jer? I'm now Jer? Like, oh, I was like, I'm still.
But Jer, what does that actually mean? Give her more range. What is he telling you to do there?
He's telling me to release the reins on the horse, that I was choking it too much, because we just come to a stop, and it was like, now, but it's just give her more range, Jer.
So,
yeah.
No, when you saw Eastwood on your next film, you said, hey, Clint, it's me, Jer.
Yeah.
We're going to do this or what?
I said to him, hey, I was on The Unforgiven, and I was a lot heavier than I was on The Unforgiven. But he went, an alumni.
Did he?
And then, classic to Eastwood, like, he doesn't say action, he doesn't say cut. And it's from working on the Westerns, because horses, when they hear those words, they fuck around. So he just says, when you're ready, and you start up. And then when the scene's over, it plays out. We could, this time. So I'm in the scene with the guys, and I start saying, you want to be singing some Jailhouse Rock tonight? I start getting quotes. And at one point, we're doing this verbal back and forth. And I said, so are you trying to make my day? And I hear Clint comes walking up from behind the camera and goes, you got it in there, did you?
Mm-hmm.
I said, yeah, I kind of had to. And he says, do you think you can get Big Girls Don't Cry in there? And also I was like, you're asking me for a specific improv? And then I was like, it's got to be done. It's like I had to, and it couldn't be, hey, Big Girl. It had to
man, this is a no question situation, of course.
I got it in there, and it was like, he's just, Oh, and then I saw him. He was shooting. Not sure which one it was, but it was on the stage next to us on Cold Case on Warner Brothers. And I'd heard that his wife loved our show, and his bus was there. And I waited for 20 minutes on the other side of the road or whatever, and I saw him walking towards his bus. And I went over just as he got to the door, and I said, "Excuse me, Mr. Eastwood." And he opened the door and he kept his hand on it. And it was sort of, I got the message of, I'm going inside here, state your fucking business. But
Right.
not, I even said it more intense than it was, but there was just this general thing of, I'm, let me know what you got in the next 2 seconds or I'm going inside.
Mhm.
I said, "Hey, I'm Jeremy Ratchford. I played Deputy Andy in The Unforgiven." I said, "But I'm next door working on Cold Case, and I hear your wife loves the show." Da, 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 da. And he goes, "Oh," hand came off the door. He goes, "Yeah, I like that show. It's good." I had like a 3-minute conversation with him that I can't remember any of it because it was just like, now we're just two pals on the Warner Blot saying, "How's things been going? Yeah, family good? All right. Well, hey, best of luck
Okay.
on the next one."
Let's see if I'm right here. So if you're talking about seeing him during your Cold Case days on the Warner lot and he was going to his trailer, is that blood work he was doing? Because that's where I met him. Blood work was the one where they took all the real like causeways at the studio and made it look like an alley, and he shot there. Was that what the movie he was doing there?
It might have been the
Or
Sons of Iwo Jima.
it might have been what?
Sons of Iwo Jima.
Okay, yeah. Well, that actually wasn't much longer after that. Flags of Our Fathers.
Maybe that was it too. It was
Or he also did Space Cowboys on the lot, so that was all sort of, it all blurs together for me. But I mean, I was there for Letters Home from Iwo Jima and Flags of Our Fathers, which I thought those were. I particularly like Letters. What is it? The Japanese version, was that Letters Home? It was called Red Sand when they made it. I don't know, but yeah, so that was good. So he recognized the high caliber talent that is Jer Ratchford. You're no longer Jeremy, my man. You're now Jer Ratchford. Final thoughts on The Deep before we close it out. Give it a rating.
I loved it, and again, that opening 10 minutes is the sexiest fucking 10 minutes going.
Here's my question about that. Bassett had to know where that was going, right? When they shot it, she had to know.
Well, we're talking
in a t-shirt.
1976 too. Like,
yeah. So do you
different
think? So she had to have some idea what fuse that was going to light, right? Even though throughout the entire movie she doesn't play her character like someone who, is
no.
over
You know what? When she gets up into the boat after, she leans forward, so she's not standing there kind of going, "Look." She leans forward, and then she takes the towel and dries herself off. You can see her back, but she gets dressed. So there was no coyness to it. There was no, it felt really kind of raw, and she has a wonderful figure, but she wasn't wearing bikinis. It wasn't I don't know. Just that
they had to, yeah. They must. I'm sure Peter Yates got together with her and her agent, probably, and the studio and said, "Look, here's what we really need to open the film with. You are Jacqueline Bisset, and we're going to open it with you as Jacqueline Bisset. And we really need this for the opening credits." And she probably said, "Yeah, whatever makes for a successful movie, I'm down," because she does seem like a jobber in that sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, she wasn't shocked when she saw it in the theater. I think when she saw when she saw dailies, I think she's like, "Yeah,
oh yeah,
yeah." Do you think they asked for more money within the framework of the deal?
I don't even know anymore because there
Probably
was a
not.
time, I remember the Star Trek. Wasn't there a woman that had to shave her head and they had to pay her
Parsias Kambata.
Now it's sort of, well, as you said, now it's written into your contract that you have to provide a blooper reel that you're not going to get any money for that, are you? Like, that's
No,
just
probably not.
All
right.
See some of these.
I give the deep another C plus, two C pluses for me today. Cassandra, meaning watch it, it's enjoyable.
Yep.
You know, not a Christmas movie that you're going to watch every year, but or maybe it is for you, and that's cool. But definitely fun.
I think I'm going to make the opening 10 minutes my Christmas present to myself each year and watch it every year at Christmas.
Well,
so I can see
Jacqueline Bisset, if she still gets a royalty from it, will appreciate it. And who knows how that's calculated, ethically or not, by the studio processors.
You know what? I'm wondering what. I'm just going to do a real quick. I'm just going to put in The Deep and wonder what the movie poster. Hold on.
Oh, it's her. It's her. Or it's her now. I don't know if it originally was. It probably was. First time around, too.
Yeah.
But it's her. Yeah.
Yeah. There it is.
Yeah, there you go. The Deep. So if you take anything away from this, watch season 1 of Kojak. Go revisit Foul Play.
Yeah.
The Deep, of course. And we've relived some Unforgiven memories in honor of Richard Harris, who deserves to be remembered in all the right ways. And we talked a little Shaw. And we are going to have to stack up we're going to have to stack up a new 70s action pack for next week. But somebody better get busy, meaning you. I think we go White Buffalo.
As I said, I watched Who Has Seen the Rain?
Okay. Yeah, you suggested it. No, but I saw you suggested it.
Yeah. I'd never, I know it popped up by whatever followed it down. And, take a look. So I won't say anything.
All right.
Okay. It's Tuesday Wells. Right.
From Thief.
I knew the name, but when I saw her, it's kind of like I've seen it, but I don't know. She's another one. It's like I've heard your name a bunch.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? You just triggered something. I can't remember watching Thief. Like
it, Michael Mann.
Yeah.
James Caan. Rest in peace. All right, brother. Always a fun time with Jeremy Ratchford. There is no Jeremy any longer. It's no Jer.
You can't say Ratchford after it, though. It's either Jer or
Jer.
Yeah, Jer.
Good to see you, Jer. And then we should also say goodbye as Werner Herzog. This is where I say goodbye to not Jeremy Ratchford, for he no longer exists. It's now Jer, and that is the first soul-crushing experience I will have to accept. This Jer, it is but a false victory in the name Jeremy, but we will go on and make magic happen nonetheless. Werner Herzog, Jeremy Ratchford, everybody.
Baby, I love it.
What's that? Oh, God. You know, it's not a good Werner Herzog, but you almost have to do it, right? You have to try it.
Yeah.
When Werner Herzog is mentioned, you have to take a crack at doing it. And my understanding is he actually enjoys hearing them. He enjoys hearing impressions of himself. Yeah. That's what I hear. I've never actually test fired it live in the room. We've never gone live rounds on it, but we'll find out. We'll find out when we get him in A Christmas Carol this year to play the Ghost of Christmas Pat. No, I'm kidding.
Just one last one for Harris. He told me the story too, but telling his then wife that the person he was about to introduce her to was really hard of hearing. So he went over. Hi.
Yeah.
How are you? Yeah. Set her up. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Harris, definitely a kidder. All right, brother. It's good to see you.
Right,
we'll be back in action soon. Jer, last name, fill in the blanks because we're no longer allowed. Last name will not be named.
Yeah.
Always a pleasure, dude. One of our all-time favorites. One of the heroes that we love very much. Jer Ratchford.
Hi there, everybody. Voice actor Roger Craig Smith here to talk to you about NMOSD. It can paralyze you, it can blind you, it can even kill you in a matter of minutes, but we are very close to a cure, and with that cure could come a cure for cancer. So please go to the Guthrie Jackson Foundation and donate today. Appreciate it.